A pleasant morning, my dear colleagues here at University of Perpetual Health System Laguna, ladies and gentlemen. I have never been this excited to do this task before because the resource speaker that I am to formally introduce to you is very dear to me, as he is one of those persons who inspired me to fall in love with the academe and research as well because of his very contagious passion for teaching and for learning since we were in college. Dr. Jose Mayo, who Joel, Joel Mayo Torres, is an associate professor 3 at Central Luzon State University, where he also completed Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in English, the cum laude of our batch. He is the first graduate of the Master of Arts in English, major in Applied Linguistics with honor program at Nueva Ecija University of Science and Technology. In less than 3 years, he completed Doctor of Philosophy in Applied Linguistics at De La Salle University as a scholar of the CHED K-12 Transition Program Scholarship Grant. An early achiever that he is, at 6 research articles in the field of education, social linguistics, discourse analysis, language and culture, Philippine English, and second language acquisition, learning Fuji, in Scopus Index internationally referred in institution-based journals. He also presented research papers in international conference. For 2 consecutive years, he was recognized by De La Salle University Office of the Vice Chancellor for Research and Innovation and the University Research Coordination Office for his contribution in the field of research. In 2021, his research paper was recognized as one of the most Scopus Index research articles in the Humanities, Arts, and Education cluster. He is always invited as research evaluator and speaker in universities' in-house reviews for ongoing and completed projects. His indexes as author are as follows: Google Scholar 8H Index and 8I10 Index and Scopus 4H Index. Despite of being highly cited, this person makes me see that we can juggle research and our teaching loads, but at the same time maintaining work-life balance. Okay. Kinakabahan ako introduce siya because it's just like what we were talking about yesterday. He had never felt nervous to do a lecture during a conference, pero because I would be here and uh, we would be uh, we would be seeing each other virtually in a very formal venue. Ayun, parang it takes a lot of pressure. Parang ako ngayon, nape-pressure ako na ipakilala siya. He was the former chair of the Secondary Education Department of College of Education and director of the Expanded Tertiary Education Equivalency and Accreditation Program at CLSU. At present, he is the head of the Center for Educational Resources Development and Services and an accreditor of the Accrediting Agency of Chartered Colleges and Universities of the Philippines. In 2015, he was the recipient of the Outstanding Young Novo Ecijano for Young Professional category for his exceptional display of skills, knowledge, and perseverance in achieving greater heights of achievement for the province of Nueva Ecija. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our resource speaker for this morning, Dr. Joel Mayo Torres.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Dr. Rowena Ramones Contilio. No, I feel you are also excited to introduce me because you first mentioned I'm Jose. And yesterday I was Reyes. So Jose Javier Reyes, parang papa-director na ang peg ko, no? So watch all the movies that I'll be directing soon. Okay, so yeah, I'm really excited for this undertaking. You know, I've been delivering talks every or year round, as I say, but this is something very special to me because this is an invitation from a dear friend. And really, I have that excitement and pressure, and of course, that enthusiasm to deliver my talk. So Thank you, Dr. Owen, for that very comprehensive introduction about my research engagements for the past years. It is indeed so refreshing to be reunited with you virtually. As Dr. Contillo mentioned, we were batchmates and we used to do a lot of stuff, academic, personal, and social back in college. We used to share the stage as well for university gatherings as a masters of ceremonies. We were assigned in the same school during our teaching internship, and we did a lot more fun activities. It feels great to be reunited with her, especially now that we see how we grow professionally and share the same passion of providing excellent quality and research-based pedagogy. So to the Executive School Director, Dr. Ferdinand C. Somido, our Research Director, Dr. Leomar S. Galicia, the college deans who are present this morning, the coordinator for research in the basic education program, Dr. Contillo, dear faculty and student researchers, good morning. So you see it's 9 days before Christmas, and one of the best ways to start Christmas countdown is to engage in this worthwhile, cutting edge, and forward looking academic forum. It is really an honor and a privilege and a great opportunity to be joining you in the 2021 Institutional Research Congress. Greetings from Nueva Ecija. It's already 8:43 here. I know it's also 8:43 there. We don't have any time difference. Okay, so good morning. So may I now be allowed to share my screen? Okay, I'll be sharing my screen, but I am disabled to share my screen. So can I get a discount, PWD? Because, yeah, okay, so can I be allowed? Okay. So can I now be allowed? Ganun na kasi ngayon, no? Before kasi, pwede pong i-project yung PowerPoint. Ngayon kasi, can I now share my screen? For the past almost 2 years, ganun na ang ating linyahan. Okay, so can I now?
For a moment, Sir Joel.
Okay, thank you, Sir Omar.
Sir, please try na po.
Okay, I'll try again. So, oh, the subscriber cannot be reached. Wait lang. Okay, I'll try again. Where's that? Advanced files and okay, for a while.
Okay. So while we're waiting,
Is my screen now visible po? Not yet.
not yet po, sir.
Okay, so for a while po.
Okay, so fellow researchers, we really have to listen to Dr. Joel because eventually we will be having our open forum so that all our concerns, all our questions would be clarified, will be answered. Okay, so stay put. Later on, we will also be having the our awarding ceremonies, wherein we'll be giving certificates to our session managers, technical panelists, student assistants, best presenters, and best papers. Right, Sir Omar?
That's correct, Teacher A. That's even exciting for our second day of the conference. Thank you.
One of the most awaited parts of the of the research conference.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct, no? Kayong mga mananalo ay malalaman kung papadalan ng food via Grab or even Food Panda. Okay? Malalaman because we have a lot of requests coming from Pangasinan and from Golden Meadow as well, from Professor Makali and Professor Palaroan. They've been sharing a lot of food. You know, I think they are excited about mukbang this Christmas.
Gcash, wala bang isi-send, Dr. Leomar?
Via Palawan padala po siguro.
Okay, so
Pupunta pa.
ayan.
Okay, once again, good morning. So I have to change my laptop for that purpose. Buti na lang dalawa yung aking naka-open ngayon. So, okay. So can you now see my screen? Po?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Now, if we ask the question, what makes higher education different from earlier stages of education? Of course, the answer must always be research. The focus on creating and discovering, as well as in disseminating knowledge. It follows, therefore, that our teaching as a form of dissemination should have this added value of being linked to creation and discovery. That is, it should be research informed. Hence, in every corner of institutions of higher learning all over the world, we hear the call for academicians to engage in cutting edge and in forward-looking research undertakings. Decades back, the question asked among academicians in terms of their research productivity is, are you published? Years after that, the question became, are you well published? But today, the question asked among us, the academicians, in terms of our research engagement, has transformed to, are your works cited? And there's no other way to get cited than to get published. Hence, today's arena expects for research, publication, and citation. For beginners in the field of research, a number of research-related concepts may seem a bit overwhelming and challenging to grasp and achieve. Hence, research trainings and webinars like this are frequently done. My topic for today is entitled Structuring Scientific Papers from Effective Writing to Successful Publishing. This topic will provide practical tips on accomplishing the sections of research articles, the introduction, the methodology, and the results and discussion. Now, if we ask the question, is there a formula or is there a perfect ingredient to successful publishing? And we know the answer. The answer is always yes. If we also ask the question, is research writing a solely scholarly undertaking, Or is it a personal one? Or a combination of both scholarly and personal undertaking? I think we can answer such question by looking at the research cycle. Here's our research cycle that will tell us where should we really start in writing our research. Is it a matter of a scholarly undertaking or a personal one? In my experience, I can say it's a combination of both, because you can always begin in any cycle or in any stage of the research cycle. Sometimes we don't have yet a topic in mind, but we have a methodology. We have a process or a procedure in our mind that we have to apply in a certain set of research questions. Or sometimes we have that gap, that curiosity that we have in our mind. Or along the way, we have read a conclusion from a research article that actually started to spark our curiosity to eventually find more answers about the questions raised by previous researchers. So it's a personal and a scholarly undertaking. I always remember that they say that in research, if you don't have a problem, if you don't have a research problem, and that becomes your greatest problem. But getting problem is actually, or conceptualizing problem can be done by basically looking at critically, intensively, comprehensively, and synthesizing the available literature in your field to establish the gap. Di ba sa LRT, laging sinasabi, mind the gap in the platform between pagsakay mo. So it's also applicable in research that we always have to mind the gap, because that will give us the value, the significance, and why do we say that this particular undertaking, research undertaking that we will engage into is worthwhile. So I will be walking you through the different sections of a research paper and how each of these sections are organized. So we keep on hearing the term IMRAD, that stands for Introduction, Methods, Results, and Discussion. So let's begin with our introduction. As Julie Andrews say, beginnings are always hard. Really. When you are tasked into something that you're about to begin with, you really don't know where to begin. Say, for example, me, when I have to write something, I would always remember I already set up my office this way. I already wash all the dishes. I already wash my clothes. I already cleaned the house and don't know yet how to start, because beginning is really difficult. It's like you is standing in this rock and looking at the ocean. And it's you actually asking yourself the most important question of Andy Williams. You know, Andy Williams will always say that in all those beginnings, it's always hard to tell your story like, well, do I begin to tell the story of a cloud that you can bring? Diba? A great a love can be. Diba sabi niya? The sweet love story that is older than the sea. The simple truth about the love she brings to me. Where do I start? O di ba na mali pa yung pasok ko? Kaloka. Okay, so it's always hard to begin. Di ba? Looking at these rocks, these are like the parts of your introduction. Where will I start? How do I begin my first word? But remember, the moment you start, it goes on. It continues. If you can't write anything, just do something. That's the basic premise in research. If you have a research day, say for example, I always allot a research day. And if I can't do anything in that day, I would just look at the references. Check the references. Or I'll just read abstracts, or I'll just look at the Google Scholar profiles of the rock stars in my field. Those I follow, and it will spark a topic. It will spark an idea. It will give me that creative or technical idea to begin with. So looking at this photo, you can see the man is standing in one of the racks, and for him to go in the other racks, which actually symbolize the parts of our research paper, it's either he hop into it or he go through the waters. Whatever process you are in to engage into, you will always reach your destination. It could be a trial and error. It would be harder for you to reach the destination, but you will get there. Always remember that if you continue moving. So the research introduction, as they always say, it's the most crucial part of the paper. Sometimes researchers take this for granted because they say this is just an introduction, but as always, introduction is our first impression. We are establishing our first impression, of course, beside from the references. As a reviewer myself, other than the references, which I first look at, I also look at how the introduction is drafted. If they were able to create, if you're able to arrive at the topic scholarly and were able to review the previous works done related to the topic and establish that particular gap that we are saying. Most of the time, and as always, deficient and confusing introduction leads to rejection. And introduction, it contains most of the section of our research paper because here we have the background of the study, review of related literature, we have the research questions here, we have here the theoretical and conceptual framework, we also have here the scope and delimitation. So for us to craft our introduction, it really takes a lot of challenge and a lot of reading and a lot of researching about this particular topic. So according to Neil in 2007, a good research introduction is the one that bridges the gap between the knowledge of the intended readers and the research paper. Because in a certain topic, there are a lot of constructs, sub-constructs created to it. And here in the introduction, you are trying to expose your intended readers of the available constructs and how are you going to limit this construct in the basis of your present research. So it's like you trying to provide them with this information that they could use for them to better understand what the topic is you are trying to introduce to them. And according to Hanston in 1994, cited by Safnil, a good research introduction is one that shows that the research article is necessary and worthwhile. It's like you are already selling your paper at this early. Because if they don't find it interesting, if they don't find it novel, if they don't find it scholarly in the introduction per se, then how will you encourage them to go on reading? How will you encourage them to devote some moments of their precious life to be continuing reading this particular article? That's why John M. Swales in 1981, he had this particular inquiry of how do researchers draft or organize their introduction, because he noted that most of the introductions written before 1980s were really poorly written, or there are those problems with his Chinese students that his Chinese students then could not really write their introduction. So he tried to look at the corpus. He tried to gather research introductions from different fields and discovered that there are different moves that these authors do follow for them to be able to come up with their introduction. So he calls this the Swales CARS model. Why CARS? Because CARS stands for create a research space. Okay, it's where you are going to see what has not been done, what are yet to discover. It is a model pioneered by John M. Swales in 1981, who investigated introduction sections of the different research articles in various fields. And what did he find out? That there are 3 moves that researchers follow. First move is establishing a territory, setting the boundary of your topic, telling that this topic is about this discipline. Then the second move is establishing a niche. And after you establish that there is a niche, there is a space, then you have to occupy that niche through your research questions, through your sound methodology. Let's go into the details of this. Diba? Writing an introduction is like revealing something to your friend, diba? How will you reveal something to your friend, diba? Ang dayo pang paligoy-ligoy. Ganon din sa introduction, there are moves. There are moves that we have to follow. But there are parts of these moves that could not be applicable at some point. That's why Swales reorganized this in 2004. And I'll be rewriting to you the new version of it. So the Carl's model for research article consists of 3 moves. And in each of the moves, there are several steps that covers the situation, contextualizing the situation, providing the problem, and giving solution or addressing the problem. And part of the move 3 is also evaluating the value of that particular problem that you are proposing. So move 1, step 1 is claiming centrality. Say, for example, of all the disciplines, which discipline are you going to research about? If you're going to research about education, then it's still so comprehensive. You have to narrow it down. What about education? Are you going to talk about instruction? Are you going to talk about assessment? Are you going to talk about learning? Are you going to talk about behavior students and the like? So step 1 is claiming centrality about your topic. It's just like a funnel. You go with a general one until you trace your main topic. Then step 2 is making topic generalizations. What has been done? What has been said about this particular topic? What has been found out by previous researchers? That leads you actually to step 3, which is reviewing previous research article in support to the generalizations you made in step 2. Then you move to the second one, establishing a niche. This is where you identify weaknesses. Weaknesses of previous articles, previous research articles published in your field. That's why, as you go along with reading the articles, you have to be critical. Critical in a way that you are not only a passive reader, but you're an active one in which you're trying to look at the loopholes, in which you're trying to look at methodological concerns, in which you are trying to look at the instruments used, the design used, are they appropriate? The participants, are they enough? And all those loopholes that you want to address, or are the questions enough to cover or to answer the entire phenomenon? Then after that, you move to the step 2, which is indicating a gap. Later on, I'll give an example of a certain article that applied all these moves and steps. Then that's where you present the problem for move 2. You can only present the problem after you have thoroughly, intensively, and critically reviewed the available literature in the field. That's why I remember our training in our coursework, in our PhD, that before we were able to come up with our research problems, we were asked to review like 40 journal articles related to our field and come up with an integrative literature to be able to establish that there is a really need for this particular inquiry. The integrative literature that we produced back then will lead us to key research questions that are products of this integrative review. Move 3 is occupying the niche, where you could outline the purpose of your present paper. Then you also provide them of a glimpse, an overview of what they are to expect out of this paper. And of course, you will also tell them what you're gonna do, not with the dessert, but with what you're gonna do with the paper and how you're going to answer the questions. then describing how the main outcome will influence or provide for the present literature. Because when we do research, we are contributing to the body of knowledge. What would you contribute? Is it worth conducting? Is it worth experimenting? Is it worth your time? Because remember, when we engage in research, if we say yes to a research project, we basically say no to other undertakings. We say no sometimes to date nights. We say no to weekend get-togethers and the like. So it's always important that when we engage into something, there's that particular value in it. It adds something. I always remember my professor told me that if you are to do something, make sure you like what you are doing, because it's like a relationship. You will invest time, you will invest emotion, you will invest resources. And if at the end of the day you don't like what you're doing, then there would be a lot of concerns that will come along the way. But as they say, cliche though, if you like what you're doing, half of the work is already done because you're passionate about it. Then indicating the structure of the article. How is the article organized? What are the key parts of the article? What are they to expect in the succeeding portions of the article? So let's try to take a look on how this is applied. Let us apply the Swales Cars model. This is one of the first research articles we published in 2019, right after I completed my PhD. So I co-authored this with Dr. Erickson Alieto from Mindanao. So in this paper, we tried to look at how accepting are the pre-service teachers of the different lexical and grammatical variants in Philippine English. So let's try to look at how we organized the introduction of this paper and how we followed all the moves based on Swales Cars model. So step one is claiming essentiality. So here, you are trying to create a territory, a boundary, that this research is all about this. This is the concern of this research will be this one. So we started this with the premise coming from Crystal in 2003 that English has become the most global of all languages, the lingua franca of business, science, education, politics, and even pop music. So here alone, we're trying to claim that the topic we are trying to investigate here is about English. As an international language, English is used by 414 million speakers in 99 countries. As such, varieties of English reflective of speakers' diverse cultural backgrounds have become inevitable and widespread. So here you are already excluding other disciplines because you are already claiming or setting the boundary or claiming to be this is what I'm trying to discover or trying to investigate on. So this will focus on English. So now step two is making topic generalization. What has been found out? What has been established? What are those conclusions made out of the topic? Then we started with the premise coming from Ashcroft, Griffiths, and Tiffins, as cited by Tupas in 2004, that they call the indigenized varieties of English in formerly colonized society as the result of decentering the imperial norms of the English language through the process of appropriation and abrogation. The varieties then become the proud bearers of non-Western cultures and histories and the conduits through which nationalist voices and struggles are expressed. This is the theoretical impetus behind the current dominant paradigm of the world Englishes. So that is the time where we introduce to our readers that English is no longer English, rather it is Englishes, because a number of people who speak the language, they tend to claim ownership of it. It's no longer owned by those who are in the inner circle, by the Americans, by the British, by the Australians, but those those from the outer circle also claim that they have that certain ownership. So if you claim ownership into something, you feel that you are entitled to do some modifications. And these modifications of the Englishes, of the varieties, became the theoretical impetus and theoretical framework for the what we call now world Englishes. So you are now trying to make generalization out of your topic. So first introduce, set boundary, and second move would be what has been done, what has been observed, what has been concluded in your topic. The next move is you are to review previous research articles, such as Philippine English is one of the constellation of world Englishes, or the WE. For Bautista, Yamzon, Gonzalez, Philippine English is a unique brand of English used by a number of educated Filipinos, while Bernardo and Madruño in 2015 mentioned that Philippine English is visible in different media forms, both print or non-print, literary or non-literary. It is the product and the continuous use of English, and its conception was the inevitable outcome of confluence of several elements. I remember when we first submit an article on Philippine English, one of the comments of the editors is that you have to first cite the pioneers in the discipline. They are the ones you have to consider, because we tried to cite earlier researchers, but we were told that it would be better if you look at the seminal works of those people in the discipline, those who first investigated this particular area, would give a better impact or a better insight, or a better power, a better appeal to your paper. You would say, so sir, if there's already review of previous research article at this early, do we need a separate section for RRL in the paper? There are instances that your journal will require you for a separate section within the introduction. It's within the introduction, but there are sub parts. But there are times in which the introduction will stand as just one part, and all of the items within the introduction are included in that one. So what we're trying to say here is that you're reviewing previous research in the introduction, in your main introduction, would just be a glimpse. Then the thorough discussion could be in a separate portion where there are headings, where there are themes that you would want to create. Say, for example, in our case, we also, aside from telling this at the early part of the paper, we also devoted or set a separate part for introduction where we look at the gender and variability in Philippine English, the geographical location in Philippine English, and the like. So what we're trying to say here is that at this early, you just have to provide us a glimpse of what has been done and what do these rock stars or authorities in your field tell about the work or about the discipline you are to research. Then move to, there are actually two steps. First is identifying weaknesses, diba? Dapat it's like we are like medical doctors. We can diagnose. We can diagnose what we're missing, what were actually not yet done by those who engage in this particular undertaking earlier than us. So step one is identifying weaknesses, and step two is indicating a gap. So first you say, indeed, there is awareness to an extent of the existence of Philippine English. However, this does not necessarily mean that acceptance comes along with it. Awareness is not equal to acceptance. This also means that there is a need to explore. Okay, that is where you now introduce your topic. To explore acceptance towards Philippine English. Exploration of attitude towards a language or its variety can provide information essential for the prediction of linguistic scenes in areas where possible competition exists. Moreover, there is a dearth. Ayun, di ba? Yun yung mga linyahan natin, di ba? Pagka nag-i-indicate tayo ng gap. There's a dearth of studies exploring Philippine English acceptability. Philippine English speakers, as the ones in contact with Philippine English, are always part of the equation. Hence, to fully describe the Philippine English phenomenon, background of its speakers, as well as the context in which it is used, it is necessary, for it is the users and its uses that determining Philippine English destiny and the direction of its evolution, change, and development. So, how can we identify gap? Of course, we look at the methodologies. How can we identify gap? We look at the conclusions raised by previous researchers. We look at the limitations that they have stated. And that is where you're gonna zero in. That's where you're gonna begin, okay? In their recommendations. Although it's advised that we don't have to highlight weaknesses of our research paper, but sometimes it could be implied there so that it will give ideas to future researchers on what should they do. Okay, so here we could see where is the weakness and where is the gap. So the one in the red is the weakness of previous studies, and the gap is the one in the blue color. Okay. Still part of gap, although a study on the pedagogical acceptability of Philippine English grammatical features has been done, no study so far was undertaken to identify what Philippine English grammatical and lexical items are acceptable in the different discourse types, such as informal and formal spoken, and informal and informal written domains. So make sure when you say no study so far, make sure that you have exhausted the literature in the field. Hindi yung claim na no study so far. I remember when I did an evaluation of ongoing projects and they keep on claiming no study so far. I would direct them. There are studies. You have to acknowledge these studies. Say that there are studies, but there are limitations. And those limitations are the ones you want to address. Don't say there's no study if you aren't sure of it. Or to be safe, no study so far, or to the researcher's knowledge. Pwede din naman ganon. Hindi ko nga alam di ba? You may say that. Di meron pala. Okay. O di na-inform na kami. Pwedeng ganon. Okay? So it's always important that you have to be cautious on telling something, di ba? Mahirap yung you're claiming, tapos may nakabasa. Uy, ginawa ko yan. I have a work on that. Di congrats. Di ba? So dapat, we have to do extensive research on it. Okay? Moving on. Move 3 na tayo, di ba? May kanya-kanyang moves di ba? Di ba ganoon din naman sa pagpapaano, di ba? Pag nagpapapansin tayo sa mga gusto natin, di ba? There are different moves that we do. Di ba? Kunyari, ikaw ay isang babae at gusto mo yung lalaki, di ba? Nasa isang table siya, di ba? Titingin-tingin ka lang, ganyan. Di ba? Pwede igaganon-ganon mo yung buhok mo, gaganyan-ganyan mo, 'di ba? Pag hindi ka pa rin ipinansin, baliktarin mo, baka mapansin ka na niya. So, the same is true with research. There's a formula, and all we have to do is basically to know this formula, to really what you call this one, internalize. And this will become part of our system. And it becomes part of the system para lang tayong sabi nga ni kahapon, 'di ba? Research writing is not like a walk in the park. Diba? Pwede namang it's a walk in the park, pero you are carrying yung kavan of rice, diba? May dalaking sako ng bigas, nag-grocery ka, dala mo yung anak mo, walk in the park pa rin. Pero may mga ka on the side, diba? May karagdagang hirap, but all you have to do is just a matter of exposure. I remember way back in college, third year college was my first exposure to research, diba? We were grouped by our professor and we were asked to write a research. Then I remember most of the task was, of course, in a group, naman, di ba? You will divide the task among the members. So, kanya-kanyang kuha yan ng task, di ba? Yung isa tagabili lang sa old market, gano'n. Yun na yung task niya. May grade na siya, di ba? Tagabigay ng bond paper. But early at that point in my life, I felt the need that we owe it to our children, sabi nga ni Catriona Gray. We owe it to children, di ba? That we owe to the group, di ba? We felt that I owe it to the group. Sabi kong ganon. Na we have to come up with something. And that was a time na you did most of the work in the paper. And that's the time you realize that the Lord is preparing into something na you will be falling in love with the task. And the moment you fell in love with the task, you don't want to break your relationship with that na. You want to sustain, you want to renew, you want to keep on going. And how do you do that? You nurture, you nourish, you find time. Diba? Ganun po mga kapatid. At dyan po nagtatapos ang ating kumustahan. going back to this one, is move 3 na tayo. Importante ang move 3 because here is you're going to outline your paper and inform them of the main outcomes of your paper. So you will begin by saying, the present study aims to determine the pre-service teacher's extent of Philippine English acceptability. It further undertakes to determine the difference on the participants' extent of acceptability when grouped according to gender, type of high school attended, educational program, and geographical location. And lastly, it tries to establish relationship between extent of acceptability and number of languages spoken and perceived English proficiency. So here you're already telling them the objectives of your paper, what they are to expect. Kasi sometimes in journal articles, they don't give a separate section for research questions. It's embedded at the end, at the latter portion of your introduction that, hence, after telling all this, ano ngayon? Ganun lagi, di ba? O after may kwento ito, ano ngayon, di ba? What's the point? Lagi tayong gumagano, di ba? Kunyari may kikwento sa yung kaibigan mo, oy, alam mo ba, ganito. Ang dami ng kwento, yung sa ano pa, o ano ngayon? Ito yung part na yun. So ano na Marites, di ba? Parang ganon. Ano na gagawin natin? So sagutin mo yan sa move 3. Okay? You have to establish that in this through steps 1A and 1B, outlining the purposes and announcing the outcomes of your paper. Your selling point, di ba, of your paper. Next is summarizing the methods. Using the grammatical and lexical acceptability questionnaire, the study aims to contextualize the extent of acceptance of Philippine English grammatical and lexical items among 400 pre-service basic education teachers in state universities in Luzon and in Mindanao. As early as that, you are already telling them what instrument are you going to use. Will you adapt? Will you devise? Will you modify something? Or will you thoroughly use a standardized one? Then describing the main outcome for step 3. Result of the study is a comprehensive description on the levels of Philippine English acceptability among pre-service teachers from Luzon and Mindanao. Likewise, it will provide data on the comparison of the Philippines English acceptability based on the participants' variables. So the glimpse of what they are to expect. Di ba tayo naman, ganun tayo lagi, di ba, sa buhay? We're always looking for, so anong mangyayari sa atin? Ano na, di ba? You always have to have that assurance. Ganun din sa research paper. Assure your reader that they're expecting something in your paper. Promise them something na, oh, if you continue reading this, if you continue following my article and up to the end, then these are the things you are to expect. Diba? Next is move 3. Step 4, evaluating the value of research. So now, tell them, what is the significance of your paper? Diba? Why is it actually important for the field? How will you contribute? How will this actually address the gaps? How will you contribute to the existing body of knowledge? How will you question existing theoretical framework? How will you be able to come up with a contemporary conceptual framework out of the theoretical framework that you will have, that you will present? Then step 5 is indicating the structure of the article. The article begins with a review of literature of Philippine English. It then moves on the acceptability of Philippine English, gender, and language varieties and acceptability. So you just tell them the key portions, the key parts of the paper for them to know what are included in this particular article. Next is part of introduction is the review of related literature and studies. So sometimes they say that sometimes researchers take this for granted because they just get what they feel. Di ba? Parang sabi na, parang maganda to. Parang may kutob ako na okay to. But it's not always that, di ba? You have to be critical. Parang, ba't mo ilagay yan, sir? Parang ang ganda kasi. Hindi ba pwedeng yun lang yung dahilan, sir? Pwede bang yun na lang uli? Di ba? No. There should be a reason why you're putting that. Di ba? Sabihin mo, because it will help me explain the concepts. Because it will help me justify why I am using this design, or it will help me justify why I am adapting this particular instrument. It will help me justify why of all the concepts related to the topic I'm dealing with, these are the ones I'm going to adapt. Okay? Say, for example, when you talk about learning styles, there are a lot of researchers who would give their share of knowledge, share of idea about what learning styles are. But if you read the definitions that they are providing, they are just the same in a way, others trying to modify or others trying to add something new to the existing ones, or others trying to change the names lang. But they are just the same. But eventually, in your paper, you will provide justification why of all the available constructs, why of all the available classifications, categories of learning style, why will I settle for this author? Then you can actually justify it in your review of related literature and studies. And remember, hindi to paramihan ng nasulat sa review of related literature. It's a matter of how significant, how related are they, and how would they contribute to the overall direction of your paper. Sometimes you would see there are papers that don't have review of related literature because it's seminal works. They are trying to describe something that other researchers did not mind looking at. So it's like they are the ones who pioneer of this particular undertaking. So literature review, sabi dito, literature review is it shows your knowledge about the subject matter. That's why before you could come up with your research questions, it is important that you should first survey the available literature in your field. It's like you, as a researcher, you stand on the shoulder of the rock stars in your field. Di ba? Ikaw yung parang you are leaning or you are depending on the rock, on what do these proponents, what do these early scholars have discovered in that particular discipline. So like you are standing on the shoulders of the giants in your discipline because you always have to lean on them. That's why as a reviewer myself for journal, I look at the people you cite. If you're writing about this one, say for example, if you're writing about humor, I look if you actually cite the rock stars in humor. If you're writing about bilingualism, if you're writing about psycholinguistics, if you're writing about education and the like, we look at the rock stars. We look at the proponents if you cite them properly, if they're included, if their works are included. And if not, then there might be a question on how did you arrive at your research question and the entire thing. Because as we say, the research question earlier is the one that provides us with the overall direction. It directs all the undertakings that we have to do in our research. So this is just a quick review of what literature review is. So literature review is the one that provides critical analysis of existing research in your field. So it's critical It is not something that you just copy, write, and again, as I say, you feel na it's well written, so it might add value, it might add beauty on my research. It's also put it in my research without you critically looking at their relationship to what you are presently doing. But writing the review of related literature is not something that you can do like in just one sitting or in just a week, because it's really a process. It's really it will really take most of your time, because if you don't come up with a sound literature review, then most of the sections of your research paper will be quite problematic, because you will not be able to establish really that what previous authors did and how it relates to what you are currently doing. Literature review allows us to gain critical understanding of your field. Di ba magandang we become critical in looking at the debates, in looking at the arguments raised by different authors. I remember at one point when in my experience as a researcher, there are times that I already crafted the literature review. Then here comes another journal articles that we were able to access dahil napayagan kami, dahil may nag-sponsor. Kasi di ba minsan, most of the articles, maraming free for open access. Pero sometimes you have to pay. And pag walang sponsor, di ba, mahirap na paano mo bibilin tong mga article na to. So minsan you settle muna kung ano yung mga free, di ba? Pero pag dumating yung mga yung mga sa you have to pay for their subscription, and you find na there's a better appreciation or there's a better way of presenting the topic, then you may recast, di ba? Parang pack up, palit, ganon. Baklas, lahat, palitan, baguhin. From day one, ganon. You don't have to settle for less. There are times like that. Kasi your literature review will tell how deep is your understanding of the topic, how scholarly you are, how rigorous you are, how serious you are in investigating that particular discipline. Literature review provide us the opportunity to think about what has been done in your field, looking at similarities, looking at patterns, trends, and differences across existing research. I don't know how your style would be in writing this part, but sometimes what I do is I come up with columns, I come up with tables where I put the topics, where I put the authors and what do they say. And later on, I'll just look at that particular table in the Excel and I try to look at similarities. So you try to combine all those similar ideas. Later, I'll provide you example for that on how we do trying to synthesize similar ideas from different scholars and how to present contradicting ideas from different scholars as well. Who among the scholars would tell this and would tell that? Who would be giving us this particular argument and the like. All these arguments related should be presented here so that eventually you will be able to provide them the reason after all these arguments have been raised, after all these debates, after all these issues and controversies about my disciplines have been raised, and here I am providing you a solution at the moment. Di ba? Parang ganun. If you like the solution, click like, subscribe. Di ba? Gaganin mo pa sila. Pero you don't say that. You don't say naman that, no? Next is, it highlights both the strength and weaknesses of existing research. As we mentioned a while ago, you have to really look at what is the beauty in the previous articles and what were the lapses. Di ba? Pwede mong sabihin yun, very objective ka naman nun and very in an academician way. Okay? Next is, by establishing strengths and weaknesses, you will be able to think about what has not or needs to be done in your field. Laging ganon, di ba? Say for example, if you have research brainstorming, you would say, oh, ano ba yung hindi nagawa? Ano ba yung sinabi ni ganito? Ano pa ba yung kulang? Di ba? And the gap in the literature is your justification for your research. If there's no gap, if you cannot establish the gap, then it's not worth exploring. It's not worth engaging. Kaya nga, di ba, mind the gap. Always mind the gap. Take note of the gap. If there are several gaps, ayon, di ba? If there are several gaps you were able to find what to do, then just focus on what is realistic and save the other one on the rainy days. Diba? Sabi nga natin, ganun din naman. Ang daming gaps. I keep a research notebook with me where all the research ideas I put, this would be my future projects. Kasi hindi ko siya magawa ngayon. Pero naka-line up na yan. Okay? Parang Netflix yan, di ba? Lalabas yan next year. Hindi lang ngayon. You just have to really organize it. You just have to really plan it. So for example, I remember there was a point I was already on the proposal stage of my dissertation. Then, ang dami na namang naisip na bago. Ay, wait, diyan ka lang. Diyan ka na lang muna. Isusulat muna kita sa isang notebook, babalikan kita sa tamang panahon. Hindi man ngayon, baka bukas. Di ba? Something like that. You always have to keep those gaps. Huwag mo siyang hayaang mag-pass lang. Kung hindi mo siya magawa, take note of them. They could be a research niche or they could be your research agenda in the coming years. As a university, I know you keep your research agenda, but as a person, as an individual, you also have to keep a research agenda for yourself. Because that is something that you would contribute eventually. You have to look where you really want to establish, where you really want to be known for. Okay. Next is, okay, it's not moving. Okay, it's moving now. Okay, the purpose of a literature review, it strengthens the term and the context of your study. Sometimes poorly contextualized studies are the ones that lead to rejection. They were not able to situate the problem immediately. I remember during our early stage of publishing, we and up to now, we encounter rejection. But rejection is better than cure. Di ba? Prevention pala. Okay. Rejection is good. Rejection will make you stronger. What doesn't kill you, make you stronger. Sabi nga, di ba? So, we have to deal with rejection. I remember they would say, we would submit article and they would say, oh, you did not review this. You did not include this. How about these giants in the field? You did not consider their work. And who are you considering the works of this? Sabi na, sometimes you just based on the secondary source. Ang nangyayari, pag sa secondary source, mali yung pagkakasite niya. Mali na yung pagkakaintindi ng secondary source at hindi mo na pinuntahan si primary source kasi nakontento ka na kay secondary source without you really looking at who really said this. Kayo na nang galing. Direct from the mouth of from the rabbit's mouth. Wag na horse, from the rabbit. Diba? Direct from them na kailangan makita mo, makuha mo what they are really trying to say about your topic. As I mentioned earlier, the purpose of literature review is for you to establish why of all the terms, why of all the classifications in a certain topic is used and why you are excluding the other ones. This is the point where you can say that. It also provides a survey of preceding literature on the topic. It also helps you explore how others have solved similar questions or problems. Sometimes you can come up with a research problem by trying to research the same thing but come up with a different method, di ba? It's the same topic, it's the same research inquiries, but what you're doing is I will be coming up with a different research methodology. I will have a different way of answering your inquiry. But we'll have the same inquiry, but let me answer it the different way. Outlines the relationship of this text to each other, okay? So that's why you have to tell also that the patterns, the trends, the similarities, and how they are actually connected because sometimes it's also the same author. It's always the same author who has been working on the same topic. He just actually have some years gaps na some after 5 years he again investigated this, so you will see that one. Evaluates the quality and relevance of the literature available. Sometimes because of you doing the survey, you will notice that kulang pa pala talaga wala pa pala talagang nagawa. O, di ba? Or, exhausted na, marami nang nagawa. So, I have to think of another one. So, at this point, pwede kang dumating na ganun. Kaya nga, our training for our students is that before they could come up with their research questions, first, try to survey the available literature. Okay? Because that will keep you informed of the trends in your field. And lastly, it demonstrates your scholarly rigor. Ito yung sasabi natin na when you write literature, it's not just merely copying. It's not just merely looking at the journals. It's not like merely checking on the thesis and dissertations and just feeling na ito tama ito. Damang-dama ko, pwede itong pumasok. Itong paragraph na ito, buo ka, you're in. Ganon na. Wag ganon. Wag ganon, di ba? You have to see and read and restructure it in a way, or if they are talking about other authors in that particular write-up that they had, you may also go back to that main author to see if that's really what he was trying to say. Critical reading. We always have to include this when we write our literature. So we have to know what were the research objectives at hand. Okay? If once we have already identified these objectives, we then ask, is the research aim achieved? If they are achieved, what were the ways or how did they do it? Are there any problems with their methodology? That's a time when you look at, are the participants enough? Are the clustering enough? Are the variables well identified? Is there a problem during the time when they were conducting? Who did the interview per se? Were the codings right? Those are the issues that you will see. Was there a triangulation? All of this inquiries must be addressed when we critically read the paper. Was it a strong or a weak research model? Okay, so the design that they use, is it really the best design so far that could be used to address a problem, or there are other ways to do that, or there could be problems in the model or in the design that they have applied or that they have used in their paper to answer the question? Kasi we can always arrive at a question, an answer to our question, but the most important question is, how did we arrive? And that's the method, diba? That's why later on I will tell you that the research method is very important because it's your opportunity to be cited as well. If you are not cited in the content, you can be cited on the methodology that you have modified or that you have adapted in your paper. How will this research help you with your own research? How will the previous research inform your current work? How will they guide you? How will they give you insights eventually in explaining what has been found out? What can you take from it? Okay, di ba? It's always important that, ano ba makuha ko dito sa ano na to? Sa binabasa ko na ito. Minsan ganun, di ba? Once we read, skimming lang tayo, binansan mo, ay parang wala naman, di ba? Parang hindi naman, wala akong makuha dito. Parang hindi swak sa iniisip ko. Siguro dito ka muna. Okay. So then you have to look again. Then learn from it. What can you take from it and what do you avoid? And how are you doing, what are the things you are doing differently? These are the things that the previous scholars did, and what is something new in your present research? You have to make sure that you are taking note of that. Next is, in writing your literature review, you have to ask yourself, who are the key players in my field? Ayon, the scholars, the authorities, the giants, the rock stars in your field. You always have to look at them. What they found out, what they have to say about the topic, what were they doing on the discipline to provide an answer to the inquiries they have raised. Then how have these ideas changed over time? the development, the progress of the insights they've been sharing. Were there also instances that the authors themselves trying to contradict their previous findings? Di ba? I've read, may mga ganon in the past na the author mentioned this in the past, the same author would debunk what he mentioned before. So you have to really look at the trends. Hindi na pala ito, may bago na, something like that. So you have to track the development of the topic through time. Then in writing your literature review, you have to know the problems and the issues raised by previous scholars. Is there a problem with their methods? Again, this is very important that you have to be critical in looking at the methodology section of those papers. And you also have to establish what are you going to do differently? How will this be different from existing ones? Again, as I mentioned earlier, you might be answering the same research question, but you are doing or you are engaging to a different research method to answer the same research question raised by previous researchers. Okay, so full references for source, di ba? The difference between active reading and passive reading, di ba? Ito yung sa passive reading, di ba? When we do, oy, literature review na ako, yes, ang dali, babasa-basa lang, titingin-tingin lang sa article, kuha-kuha lang. Are you in or out? Ganun lang. Ito ba pwede? Di ba? Hindi. That's just a passive reading. If you're doing a passive reading, you just pick out important messages and paraphrase them. Di ba? You just write out memorable quotes, put in quote marks and note page number, di ba? Ganun lang. But if you're doing the active reading, you note down connections or inconsistencies. I remember, I always like the RRL procedure whenever we engage in research. I always get this part whenever we are working in a team na I'm a traditional person kasi, di ba? Ako yung ipiprint ko pa yan, yung journals, yung journal articles, I will print them and I like putting my notes on them. I like putting yung mga nabibili sa National Bookstore. Ngayon, yung mga ear pang tag, yung mga iba't ibang colors, I like to put that, my color coding yan in me to know what are this. If there are inconsistencies, for example, I will encircle that particular paragraph and would say, not the same with Batya. Not the same with Creswell, not the same with this one, not the same with Bacoloni and Charo, something like that. So you are critical, di ba? It's the literature that you have to be critical, hindi ikaw, no? Kasi baka minsan ikaw na yung naging critical sa sobrang dami ng ginagawa, no? It's the literature that should sound critical and scholarly. Sabi, sir, critical daw po. Sir, critical nga po siya, sir, ngayon. Critical siya kasi ano. No, it's the literature that should be critical. Right questions, you need to look elsewhere to answer. If somewhere, I see you, okay, if somewhere, di ba, sabi natin, tama. Di ba, yung minsan kasi, ako na-enjoy ko kasi yung literature review talaga. I see you agad, hindi ba pwedeng emergency room daw, sabi nila. Okay, so, it's like, okay, mapanakit. Okay, so we are healing live comments. No, pamain na lang po ano, kung ano yung gusto nyo dito, yung active reading or yung passive reading ba. Okay, going back. So, active reading is like you asking questions. I remember, I kept those notes with me for quite some time. Pero ngayon ayoko nang balikan kasi maalikabok na sila. Di ba? Pero I enjoy that. Ang ginagawa ko pa kasi nga matipid po ako sa totoo lang. Ang ginagawa ko pa, yung mga gamit na papel, yung mga ginamit na natin nung nakaraan, gagamitin ko uli yun. Doon ako magpe-print sa likod nila. Gustong-gusto ko yun. Nag-enjoy ako. Yung nagtatanggal ng stapler, ng staple wire sa mga nagamit na, enjoy ako doon. Na-enjoy ko siya tapos ipapasok ko ulit sa printer, di ba? Ang saya kasi nagamit mo. Good po yun, totoo. Oo, totoo yun. Di ba? Maganda yan kasi hindi ka nagkasayang ng papel. Recycle, oo. Di ba? Kaya importante na during that particular process, ina-enjoy ko yung nagusulat ako, binibilugan ko, minamark ko. And kahit saan ako pumunta minsan, kahit may mga family gatherings kami, kunyari, nag-out of town kami. Ano ba? Out of town o out of place? Di ba? Mahirap yung parang out of town. Oh. Kasi may narinig ako minsan, uy, saan ka pupunta? Mag-out of place kami. Ha? Uy, mag-ingat ka, baka ma-out of town ka doon. Sabi ko sa kanya. Sabi ko, ayun. So, pag nag-out of town kami minsan, I just bring some materials with me. Kunyari, pagka hindi ako makatulog sa hotel, ganon, I read, di ba? Daladala ko, manipis lang naman minsan yung mga papel, yung mga kilang naman eh. Kasi, remember, you don't know kung saan ka aabutan, te. Di ba? Aabot ka ba o aabutan ka? Hindi. Remember, sa research ganun din. Kung saan darating yung idea. Di ba? I remember, I used to travel Manila, Nueva Ecija almost twice a week for 2 years nung nag-aaral ako. And there are times na I feel na parang nalulugi ako kasi 8 hours travel time na kasi. 4 hours papunta, 4 hours pabalik. From Balintawak to Lasal pa, 1 hour pa, di 5 hours na. Mata-traffic pa kami. Ano mangyayari sa akin sa daan? Nga. Di ba? So sa daan, kasi I remember during our coursework, every subject you are asked to write a full research that has to be published. So 14 weeks lang ang semester sa Lasal. So in that 14 weeks, you will feel na, ika-third week na best, ika-sixth week na best, may project ka na, di ba? At na-realize ko, the closer you are to week 14, the higher your blood pressure is, di ba? Habang lumalapit ang week 14 sa Lasal, di ba? Habang love it, sir. Okay? Habang lumalapit ang week 14, naku po ang mga blood sugar namin na magkakaklase. Ang tataas na yan. May dyan na yung mga friend, nahihilo yata ako, padala ako sa ospital. May mga ganong kaming kaklase, hindi napapasok yan. Yung pala nag-research na. So sabi ko, paano yung 8 hours ko? Di ba? So kung saan ako abutan, during those time, I write. Kung cellphone lang dala ko, itong cellphone ko kasi na ito, ang maganda din sa cellphone na gamit ko, iniisip ko pa lang yung text na gagawa na niya. Okay? Okay, so sa cellphone, di ba, you have to think, you have to write keywords. Ganon din sa literature review. Read and read. And it depends kasi. Minsan, it depends on your style. Ito sharing na. It depends on your style. Minsan kasi, may mga iba na makakapagsulat lang sila pag nakapagbasa na sila ng marami. Yung iba naman, hindi sila productive pag wala silang ginagawa. It's a combination. Ako kasi minsan, pag magbabasa lang, may na lang po ang phone. Okay? Sabi ni Ma'am Ala. So, ang sa akin lang kasi, pagka binabasa ko ng ganon, minsan inaantok ako pag wala akong kasabay na ginagawa. Kaya habang nagbabasa ako, yung pa ako naghahabi, naggaganchilyo yan. Joke lang. Kailangan may ginagawa yung iba kong, yung kamay ko habang nagbabasa. Kunyari, tinatype ko yung keywords ito. Ilalagay ko siya sa, kunyari, may maganda akong nakita from this particular article. Pag hindi ko siya ma-structure at that particular moment, kukunin ko siya in toto, verbatim. Then i-read ko siya. Meaning, magdi-devote ako ng araw para ayusin kita. Pero kukunin na kita ngayon dahil hindi ko alam, baka mapalampas kita. Hindi na tayo magkita uli. Sayang. Pag dumaan ka ngayon at naramdaman ko, pumasok sa puso ko na pwede ka, kukunin na kita, pero aayusin kita, i-manage kita, ipapackage kita hanggang sa pwede ka nang lumabas sa papel. Ganun yung ginagawa ko. Kasi sayang baka makalimutan mo elsewhere. Diba? Saan ka pupunta para hanapin sila uli? Okay? So, very, very talaga. Iba-ibang proseso. Iba-ibang depende sa pagkatao natin. Hanapin mo yung style mo. Yung sinasabi ko. Kunyari, ano ka bang klase? Kunyari, kailangan ba na yun nga, basahin mo. I remember yung iba, nakahirela yung buong journal article sa buong mesa nila. Kung 12-seater yung kanilang mesa, buong buong repository na yata ng Elsevier ay andun na sa kanyang mesa related to his topic. May mga ganon din, di ba? Meron naman yung one at a time. Ganon. Depende. Look for your style. Find your style. Writing style. Approaches in writing the review of related literature, it could be chronological and it could be thematic. Okay, so how is chronological? Chronological is when you track how ideas or methodologies have progressed over time. So from the time that it was established, from the seminal works, from the contemporary works, you have to really trace that and make sure na wala kang maiiwan. O kung meron man, minimal lang. Or kung meron kang maiwan, it's just a matter of them also saying the same thing. Okay? Pero yung mga key points, you have to make sure that you have really thoroughly reviewed them. I remember sa aking in my browser, di ba naka-note naman na doon kung na-open mo na ito. And I have to see on my downloads. I always organize my desktop. If I'm working in this project, may sariling folder agad. May sariling folder for journal articles. May sariling folder na yan agad for this part. Then what I do along the way of writing, pag may nakita ako and I feel parang hindi to pang intro pero alam ko may kalalagyan ito. Kukunin ko na. Alam ko magagamit ito in the future. I know I can use this somewhere in the discussion. Kukunin ko na. May ganun ako. Kaya sa notebook ko, I have there for intro, for discussion, for method, for participants. Hanggang unti-unti mo, di ba? Sabi nga ni Sharon, balutin mo lahat yon. At unti-unting mararating ang pangarap na between. Unti-unti, wag ka sa malakihan, bes. Di ba? Unti-unting nakukuha mo, sige lang. Sige lang. Paggising mo ng isang araw, may Noche Buena na kami. Di ba? Hindi mo na kailangan gumastos. Ganon din sa research. Okay? Ganon po sa research. Importante yon na pag may nakita ka, parang pwede na ito sa part ng gap. Parang maganda tong gamitin sa gap. Pero kunin ko na ha, ganon. Itabi ko, i-ref ko lang, baka mapanis. Okay? Pwedeng ganon, no? The process. So group and discuss the sources in order of their publication date and record the research and development in each group. And it also helps you check how the field has developed over the years. So that's chronological. So you have to come up with historical account of the discipline you are trying to research and to see also if they are finding or if they are discovering the same or is it consistent? Is it consistent? I remember when I was doing a research on language and gender, we have found out that there are really, in the past, these are the findings. And nowadays, with the changes in our culture, in the society, with the dynamics in our environment, things also change. So, pwedeng ganon. You can establish that. And you can do that in the chronological approach. Next is the thematic approach. You organize and discuss existing literature based on themes or theoretical concepts necessary to understanding the topic. So here you would see that there are those sub-themes within your related literature that will eventually lead you to understanding the overall concepts. Because how do you organize your review of related literature? You go back to your research questions. On your research question, you have to get the keywords, and those are the same things. Those are the same thing that you're going to look at in your review of related literature, and those are the same things that could stand as the themes in which you're going to fill in with the available information that you could search. That's the way, di ba? Parang establish your research question, and from your research question, you just transform them into a title, and that will already be your themes in your related literature section. Okay, remember, when researching, the goal is not only to gather sources, but to gather reliable sources. Okay, hindi paramihan ito, kundi hahanap tayo ng pinaka-related at pinaka-mabigat yung ginawa nila about this particular field. And make sure that they are reliable, and they are the ones coming from high-tier journals, high-impact journals, and those that are from peer-reviewed journals. Kasi once they are peer-reviewed, you are sure that those people in the discipline, those who are working in the same field, have already provided their insights about this. And it has already went through the fine-tuning of it. And there's a lot of, it went through a lot of reading and validation and so on. So you can be sure na tama ito, di ba? Sabi nga, nakasisigurong ito ay laging tama, di ba? Next is, in the case of evolution of information, ito yung sinasabi ko kanina, in which there are multiple authors claiming the information, what should we do? Di ba? Dumarating yan di ba? Ay, nabasa ko ganito yung sinasabi ni ante. O si ate ganito naman daw. O si kuya ganito yung sinasabi. Si kuya researcher na ganito sinasabi. So sino dito? Sino ba talaga ang totoo dito? Di ba? at some point of our research career, we will experience that. Na, who is really telling the truth? There are many authors telling this, saying about this. Okay? They have also their piece of information to be shared about this particular topic. So, who am I going to follow? Diba? Diba? Parang ang research kasi, parang yung laro natin na show it to your next friend, yung pass the message, ganun din ang research. Parang nababago-bago na siya, depende sa nagsasite. Okay? Na iba naman na. Pinuntahan mo, ito yung sinabi. Kung nanatili ka doon, di ba? Kung nanatili ka doon sa sinabi nitong researcher na to at hindi mo pinuntahan, if you didn't go to your primary resource, then the tendency is you might be lost along the way. At hahawaan mo pa yung mga susunod na researcher na hindi rin babalik doon sa primary source. Diba? Yung laro natin na show it to your next friend, ipinakita mo ito, then yung second friend, iba na yung kwento niya. Diba? Yung isa sabi, uy, bumili raw ng cellphone si Lina. Nung kwento sa isa, uy, bumili raw ng cellphone si Lina at take note, may kasama pang headset. Di ba? Wala naman yun. Nadagdagan na. Hanggang sa pag-uwi na, isang entertainment showcase na ang nabili ni Lina. Ganon din ang nangyayari minsan sa research. Kaya nga, sa research, tayo bilang researcher, akminin natin, tayo si Marites. Okay? Nakikichika tayo sa mga sinasabi nila. Chismosa ang Marites, Aling Marites anthology. We researchers could also be Aling Marites if we're not telling the truth. If we're just citing what we want. If we're just citing what we understand. Di ba kasi minsan gano'n, ang hirap intindihin niya, huwag na isama yan. Baka tanungin pa tayo sa defense. Huwag na isama. Total, hindi naman maintindihan ni Sir yan. Huwag na huwag mong ilalagay ang hindi natin maintindihan. Di ba? Gano'n naman eh. Gano'n ang basic principle sa buhay. Pag hindi mo maintindihan, huwag mo na isama. Di ba? Kasi pag nilagay mo yung hindi mo maintindihan, pag natanong ka, di ba? So mahirap yon, di ba? So you have to make sure, you really have to make sure na yung nilalagay mo doon ay alam mo. Kaya minsan, pag hindi mo maintindihan, crucial yon. It's crucial in understanding the discipline and you fail to put it simply because you cannot just get what does it mean and you just can't get the connection of it from what you have previously written. Then you will end up, huwag natin isama to, mamatay na itong idea na ito. Hanggang sa ikaw na ipa-follow ng mga succeeding authors. Di ba? Pwede tayong maging chismosang researcher pero dapat tama ang chinichismis mo. Kasi ganun sa RRL eh. Para ka nagchichismis. Pero make sure, tama. Para no bashing, just for fun, sabi nga ni Small Loud. Okay? So next, sa kanyang vlog. Okay, moving on. The primary, secondary, and tertiary sources. All are these sources, di ba? So si primary, importante na we always have to go back to the primary source. Especially if we don't trust the secondary or the tertiary source. Magpasalamat lang tayo kay tertiary at secondary kasi they led us to the primary source. Binanggit na. Kaya lang minsan, sila Marites naman, gumawa na ng kwento, hindi pa sinay. So sinong babalikan mo? Di ba? Sino nga hanapin ko? So it's always important that when you are in doubt, okay, always go to primary sources. Let's see this one. Okay, say for example, this particular portion or an excerpt lifted from a literature review, such as scholars, e.g. Cross, Kolb, George, and Wald, have provided definitions of learning styles, Tulsi and Punya. I want you to look at the first sentence. Who are Cross, Kolb, George, and Wald, and who are Tulsi and Punya here? So, who are Tulsi and Punya, and who are Cross, Kolb, George, and Wald, as presented in this particular paragraph? Okay, and pwede po ang tumawag. Ay, hindi. Balik kayo. Can I call someone? Tawag tayo. Okay po. Actually po, interact, wag na. sabi ni Ma'am Weng, wag na. Wag na ma'am, wag na talaga. Ang maganda po dito sa aking lecture na ito, interactive po ito. pag may naisip po kayong pangalan na pakiramdam nyo gusto niyang sumagot, i-type nyo lang po dito. Pero pakiramdam ko rin po, once na tinype nyo yung pangalan na yan, mag-i-start na po ang bashing. Hindi po dashing through the snow, kundi bashing through the snow. Diba? Ito naman si Ma'am Weng, nilista pa yung pangalan ko. Alam naman niyang may ginagawa ako. Alam naman niyang naglalaba ako ngayon. Diba? Alam naman niyang nagluluto na ako at anong oras na. Tinawag pa ako. Ay, Lay po. Ay, ito may nagsabi. May malakas ang loob. Basahin ko yun na. May mga nagluluto na po ng Shanghai. Ang aga naman, sir. Iaabot nila yun hanggang 24. Oh, thank you. Sana masarap siguro yung Shanghai habang tumatagal na yung may asim-asim pa. With suka. Kasama niya na yung suka. Ano? Okay. Si Ma'am Lay. Nag-type lang si Ma'am Lay. Okay. So, ako na sasagot. Anong good night? Natulog na si Ma'am nung tinanong good night. Okay. Anyway, so ang difference po nito, charo, nakakatuwa yung mga reaction sa ating comment section, sa ating chat box. Okay. So wala pong gustong sumagot. Wala silang tinype, ano? So ako na rin po ang magsasagot. So ang pagkakaiba po nito, si Tulsi and Punya, siya ang nag-cite kila Cross, called George and Ward. Then eventually, siya ang nakakita nitong lahat ng ito. Siya ang nag-summarize ng lahat ng ito. Then in the succeeding paragraph, diniscuss niya ano yung isa-isang sinabi nitong mga ito. So ibig sabihin, if you can find this in my work, it's not me who said this. Rather, it was, these are Cross, called George and Ward, but it was you have Tulsi and Punya who were able to synthesize the information provided. So, importante po yon. Kasi minsan baka tanggalin natin si Tulsi and Punya. Pag sinabing scholars have provided definitions of learning, parang ikaw na yung nakakita sa kanila. Diba? Hindi mo na-recognize Tulsi and Punya na talagang siya naman yung nag-synthesize ng mga sinabi nitong tatlong ito. Diba? We have to take note of that. And as reviewers po in journals, we always look at how you do in-text citation and references. Kasi sabi ko at the onset, say for example, may dumarating sa aming review sa sobrang dami ng mga ni-review namin, ang ginagawa lang namin for journals is like we check the reference section if they follow the citation format. Then we also look at the in-text citation. That's the first thing we do. Because if they did not prepare it well, then how would you expect that the entire paper is scholarly done? So take note of that always. So moving on, dito naman po. Okay. Now here, they have strong preference for doing, are risk takers, and tend to solve problems based on their own. So this time, silang lahat na yung nagsabi. At ikaw lang yung nakakita. Okay? For this one. Okay, so you always have to group. You don't be satisfied with just one author. As much as possible, the more authors who said this is the more you can exhibit to them, the more that you could showcase to them that you did well in the literature review. You intensively and extensively reviewed the available literature. Next, this one. More recent scholars reclassified learning styles reflectors for divergers, theories for assimilators, pragmatists for convergers, and activists for accommodators. Ano yung pagkakaiba po ng IE saka ng EG when we do citation? Okay? So, say for example, a while ago, ang ginamit ko, di ba, EG. Ngayon naman, IE. Okay. So for this one, when you use IE, it means they are the only scholars who mentioned this. At wala nang iba. Pero when you use the EG, it only means that there are other scholars whom you may not have cited along the way. Na they have the same premise or they have the same thing that they are trying to say. Compared to this one, tignan po natin. Ayan. So when we look at this one, scholars, Cross, called George and Ward, have provided definitions of learning style. The EG here means that there are also other scholars whom Tulsi and Punya did not cite. But for more recent scholars, in the first one, Hani, Mumford, Felder, and Silverman, they are the only scholars who reclassified learning styles into this. Okay? So we see the difference. We can also come up with yung mga CF, may makikita tayong mga ganyan sa mga in-text citation for comparison. See? So take note of the use of this markers within our in-text citation. Then we go to the method section. Sometimes when we do a review of ongoing and completed projects in universities, research methodology is the one that we really critically look into, because it's like you arriving at an answer to a question, but how did you do it? Was it sound? Was it a sound methodology? Was it scientific? Was the method used really appropriate to answer the inquiry you raised? So like that. So in the method section, we'll look at the research design that you use. It's also important that you have to mention here, why are you adopting this research design? At this early, you have to justify the need for this research design among the other available research designs. And then for your next section, which is the participant section, you have to tell as many information about your participants related to your field, related to the inquiry. Sometimes you would notice that in journal articles now, we don't include discussion of participants in the results section. Rather, especially if we will not correlate those variables, we just thoroughly describe them in the participant section. Say, for example, if these will not be correlated or there will be no statistical test to compare this with the existing variables, there's no need to discuss them in the results and discussion, telling this is the age, this is the gender, this is the civil status and the like, if they will not be correlated along the way. You may just do that in the participant section. It's also important that you have to tell why they are the most suitable participant for your study. What are their characteristics that make them qualify as participants? If you have inclusion criteria, you have to include it here as well. I remember in one of the research works we did a control of variable for our participants. That is to answer the question that when all are equal, when all conditions are equal, and only this are you looking at, then what would be the result? So it's so hard to do the inclusion criteria and the control of variables, because you really have to look for participants coming from the same level, coming from the same language proficiency, coming from the same cultural and language grouping, coming from the same class of school. Lahat yon, control of variables is really a challenge, but you are sure that when all things are equal and you are only looking at this one, then this would be your findings and that would be valid. Then you go with the research instruments. Here's you're gonna tell whether you're gonna adapt, whether you're gonna develop, and in the process of development, who did you consult, to whom did you show the instrument, what were the comments, what were the suggestions, how did you come up with the final version, and the like. And why would you, at first place, why would you develop if there are existing? Something like that. Or why would you modify if there's already existing? You all have to provide for justification. Say, for example, I'm using this particular index, but I'm trying to modify this to suit to the current setting or for the Filipino learners, because this one has been tested in the Western context. So to make it sure that this is applicable in the current context, I did some modifications. Diba? Like the IELTS, di ba? Yung mga IELTS test na yan, they are cultural. You agree? May mga questions doon na cultural. Say, for example, ang tanong doon, if the American will answer this, ham and bacon are good for breakfast, what would the Americans answer? Ham and bacon are good for breakfast. The Americans might answer, pakita comment nga po yung sagot nyo.
Is.
Is, yeah, that's correct, Sir Leomar. Di ba? Yes, kasi sa Amerikano, iisa ang ham and bacon. Di ba? Sa ating mga Pilipino, hindi. Bacon ka ngayon, bukas ka mag-ham. Huwag kang ambisyoso. Wala tayong ano. Kaya, di ba? Bukas ka mag-bacon. Sa susunod, magbagoong ka. Nag-ham ka na eh. Nag-bacon ka na. Bawal high blood. They are highly cultural. Huwag sabay-sabay, tama. Di ba? Kaya is yon highly cultural ang mga instruments. highly context-based. So we have to make sure that we are using it because it is suitable to the current context. Then the validation of the instruments, who will test this one? You have psychometrician for that purpose. You have something from your Center for Testing and Evaluation Center would do that. So or someone who is authority in the field. Right now, we are doing a research on the on the presence of Philippine English in the instructional videos of deaf ed teachers. So we are now on we already have the videos with us. So we are now on the trying to transcribe all this, how many videos? 50 videos from DepEd, that we're trying to look at the phenomenon of Philippine English within these instructional videos used by English teachers. So something like that. Then you have data gathering, analysis of data. How you have to also important here that if you are doing a qualitative research, you have to provide us a sample framework of analysis to guide your readers. I remember before I did my coursework for PhD, I'm only limited to this kind of research, but I have research ideas in mind, but I don't know how to answer this. Luckily, when we were doing our coursework, our professors then, who are also authors of the ones we read, they're the ones who expose us, ito pala ang framework for analysis, ito pala yung mga yan. So, importante po na i-expose natin. Kasi minsan, may mga tanong tayo, may mga gusto tayong gawin sa buhay natin in terms of research, but we don't have the right methodology in mind. Pero we have the idea. We just have to look for the right way, the right process to do it. Kasi minsan, if we are limited to this methodology, the tendency is even our research questions would just be confined in the methodology that we know. So, importante po yun along the way. Okay, next is the results and discussion section. Is it result and discussion or results section, discussion section? Depending on the journal you're submitting your paper. So sometimes there are only results section and sometimes there are only discussion section. So how do we accomplish this section? In the results section, you are to present what you found when you conducted your analysis and simply say, in the discussion section, explain what your results mean and connect them to prior research studies. This is the point when you do some theorizing. I remember when our professor told us, do some theorizings. Ma'am, what is theorizing? That is when you put your ideas and connect it with what other researchers have said and connect it with your finding. That is already theorizing, okay? Making some of your insights out of it. But of course, these insights are guided by the existing literature and the framework in your field. Okay, so the difference between the two. Here, what we're trying to say is that there are journals that would require you to write a separate section for discussion. And there are journals that will ask you to have them in just one section. So if you are tasked to do it in just the same section, after you present the result, then discuss. But in other journals, only results, then another portion for discussion. I don't know for other disciplines. I think in the science field, laging hiwalay ito for the results and discussion. So core of the research or research paper, it rationalizes the results. So data generated by doing the research, it discusses the meaning of the results. So here it's important that you tell us what do these results actually mean for us. So how do we make sense of the data that we were able to gather or to compute? Because in the results, they are just data. Here, how will the discipline, how will the literature benefit from it? How will it answer the existing controversies in our field? So that's the point, or that's the time where you can answer that. Results are important in answering the objective, but in the discussion section, it states clearly what their significance is in terms of the practice, in terms of previous research, in terms of previous theory that were developed out of research, something like that. In the results, you just present the findings, but in the discussion, you compare the results with theoretical expectations. That's why I remember we have the pre-conceptual framework and the post-conceptual framework. In the pre-conceptual framework, this is how you look at it. guided by the available literature that you had gathered. But in your post-CF, post-conceptual framework, that is where you are going to see you are going to illustrate the interaction of your variables and how will you modify it based on your findings. That's why in our dissertation, we had that what we call pre-CF and the post-CF. The post-CF becomes our contribution to literature. And that is actually that is formed out of the way you discuss the findings. In the discussion section, in the results section, you use the simple past tense, but in the discussion section, you use both the past and the present tense as they are required. So in the results, you use text. In the you use non-textual elements such as tables, figure, and images. But in the discussion, you use only text, although you can also refer to the non-textual elements. The discussion section does not introduce any new results. So don't make statements that you cannot support. So basically, you are only grounded on the results in here. You are just only to elaborate them. You just only have to put implications on them. You also have them to put values out of it. How do this data make sense for the readers and for the discipline? Next is, in the results section, you state the result but does not interpret them. In the discussion section, you interpret them. What to avoid in the results section? It is actually discussing or interpreting your results. You also avoid to attempt to explain your findings in the results section because that can be done in the discussion section. But then again, if the journal requires you to write it in just one section, then you may do it immediately after you have presented the result. Now, you also have to avoid negative results. Sometimes when we do research, we already have the answer in our mind. We always have that expectation. Kasi expectorant din tayo, di ba? May gusto ka nang makita agad on your research. Kaya nga, sasabihin mo, paano kung hindi yung ine-expect mo ang lumabas? So paano na? Ano na ang gagawin ko if the one I'm expecting did not actually come out? So you don't have to ignore negative results, but you have to make sense of the negative results. How is a negative result actually related to the participants, to the context, to how you administer the questionnaire, perhaps? Pwedeng all of this be contributory to the negative results that you derive. Then, you don't include raw data or intermediate calculations. You only put the table na needed. Kaya nga, you do this in the appendix table where you can put all those preliminary calculations. Then we also have, we do not present the same data or repeating the same data or information more than once. And don't confuse figures with tables. Make sure that you are using either a figure or either a table, which is more appropriate for you in presenting that particular data. In the discussion of the results of your research, you have an opportunity to develop the story you found in the data, making connection between the results of your analysis and existing theory and research. That's why when you say, oh, I'm already in the results and discussion, so what will I do now? Mag-break ka muna. Pahinga ka muna kasi minsan pag lagi mong kasama yung papel, magkakasawaan kayo eh. Pahinga ka. Then, have a breath of fresh air. Go somewhere, di ba? Mag-vlog ka, parang si Dr. Yomar. Napapanood ko yung mga vlogs niya. Mag-mountain biking ka, like Dr. Owen, di ba? Take a break. Pag nandito ka sa portion na to, kasi you need a lot of strength. You need to gather that passion when you write the results. Kasi ang nangyayari, ladies and gentlemen, sa mga researchers is that pag naibuhos na nila, ay hindi po ba vlog yun, sir? Pero pinapanood ko, hello to my 200,000 subscribers. Pinapanood ko yon, yung naglakad kayo sa UP. Yung sa UP ba yun? Yeah. Hello to my 200,000 subscribers, sabi ni Dr. Yoma. Now is, sasabihin natin dito ay, you have to gather strength. Kasi sometimes yung mga researchers, naibuhusan nila lahat. Sa intro, sa RRL, sa method, tapos gusto nila lang tapusin sa results and discussion, nauubusan tayo ng energy. pangit yung lumalabas. Pag feeling mo, kailangan ko mag-break, di ba? Punta ka sa probinsya nyo, di ba? Uwi ka ng probinsya. Di ba ang probinsya mo, California, di ba? Saan ang probinsya nyo? California po. Di ba? Ang social na ng probinsya. So, have a breath of fresh air, go see the nature, perhaps. Then, you go back to writing the results. Okay, kasi it's important to take the insights and it's important for you to draft the story, to weave the entire story. It's the right time. It's closing all the arguments that you have earlier raised. Okay? It's closing, it's putting the cycle to an end and raising new research agenda and opening for new research opportunities. Okay? So key elements in discussion section, this includes interpretations, implications, limitations, and recommendation. So what will you interpret? Interpret the value of the results for the reader. It does not mean that the value of this to the discipline, to the practice, if this is for teaching, what could be the use of this? How could we make sense of this? How could we benefit from this? And implications of this to research as well, to methodology as well. What are the methodological implications of your paper? Could you recommend it? Could you recommend the methodology that you have just used to future researchers? Or would you tell them that you can come up with another set, or you could just adapt only at this portion and do some? And on to your limitations and recommendations, okay? So concerns to attend to. So how did your actual results compare with what you expected? So it's important as well that, wait lang po, can I have a break lang po, 5 minutes? May bumibili yata ng yelo. Okay? Wait lang mo, may kumakatok po. Bibili yata ng yelo. Sabi ko na nga kasi, hindi pa matigas eh. Ice tubig na lang daw. Wait lang pa.
Ice tubig lang eh, no? Wala pong yelo, dilaw lang.
Frosty, Teacher A.
Oh, pwede. Pwede naman.
Napatawa ko.
Sir Jan, napakadami pong katatawanan. 1 oras po ang katatawanan, Sir Jan, na miss niyo po.
Nakakatuwa kasi tumatawa tayo and at the same time, we are learning. Diba? Sabi ko, parang kahapon may ganong background. Today may ganon pa rin background.
Ganyan po siya kahit nakikipagkwentuhan lang.
Okay. Nakakatuwa. Antay-antayin lang natin and he'll be back.
Nandito na po si Senator Laina de Lima.
May bumibili pa kasi ng yelo. Sana naglagay siya ng ano tawag doon, Sir Omar?
Dapat tinanggal mo yung sign. May ice port.
Ayun, tinanggal yung sign.
Dapat tinanggal bago mag-start.
Yes, Ma'am She.
Sobra daw.
Oo. Lagyan niyo po ng S yung sobra. May S sa dulo.
Ayun na po. Napagbentahan ko na po ng yelo, yung bumibili. Nakakaloka lang po. Bumili ng isang yelo, 1,000 yung pera. Sabi ko, visit ka. Okay. Sabi ko, 1,000 yung pera. Sabi ko, i-Gcash mo na lang. Sabi, dapat may signage, wala pong yelo. Wala pong yelo ngayon. Okay. So, ayan. May dumating lang po kasi. Okay. Now, so, based on your result, what questions would you logically want to ask next? Kaya, it's a cycle eh. A conclusion will lead us to a set of research questions. Even as the ones researching for that particular field can also benefit from our own conclusion, from our own discussion, in which along the way we are writing it, we are already generating future research undertakings. Okay? So for this one, in your discussion section, you have to address the research question, di ba? You must draw together your research question and your own research result. If the discussion is a self-contained chapter or section, you will need to briefly summarize the major findings that come from the research and relate them to what you originally proposed to find out. So you will begin a discussion question with one statement or two that will give us an overview of what did you try to find out in this particular paper. That would be your opening. So in drafting your discussion section, you go back to your research question and try to summarize the research questions and look for the main question, and that's how you begin. Next is, part of the discussion is you have to answer whether or not the hypothesis, if you have quantitative, if these are accepted or rejected, why, and if they are only accepted in part or in whole. Because I noticed some of the submissions would have hypothesis, but they would not tell in their discussion whether they rejected it or not. So don't forget to answer this in the discussion question. And you also have to point out the agreements and disagreements between your data and that of others. In presenting your own interpretation of the results, consider the strengths and weaknesses of alternative interpretations from the literature. Sometimes sabi ko nga, if you come up with surprising results and you are not really ready for it, kasi nga surprise din, meron bang surprise na ready ka, di ba? So if you're not ready for it, the tendency is you will just disregard it. But those surprising results could be your edge, okay? Could be your way to really introduce your niche. Now, through these surprising results, this will open different research avenues that researchers in the field would also find worth exploring. And in the implication, you also have to relate the findings of your paper to the current theory. That's why sometimes you are also trying to question the existing theory in your field or strengthen it, okay, as well. Then you have the technical applications of this findings and the professional practice. So important thing here is that how are we going to make sense of the data in terms of theoretical perspectives, in terms of methodological concerns, and in terms of the professional practice or the discipline where these findings could be beneficial. Remember, when we research, it should not stop with just research publication, but it's research for development. As always, the findings would inform us on how we're going to make our instructional practices, administrative practices, or other practices in other disciplines, how we're going to improve that, and how we're going to make these things addressing the current needs of our society in general. Okay, next is, in writing your discussion, it is moving backwards and forwards between others' research and your own research, making it clear which has been done by other people, which has been done by you, and how these two things complement each other. So I remember a lecturer from Elsevier mentioned that research is not about something, giving something new, offering something new, but research is a matter of you showing how systematic were you able to gather the literature available to your field and present it in a newer perspective. That is research, okay? Not necessarily presenting something new, but how you systematically organize, understand, critically review, and present it to relate to your current agenda or to your current project. And I have here ways of organizing the different sections, but I will just do this in passing na lang. Okay, so how do we organize paragraph 1 of our discussion section? First is, in our first paragraph, we have to provide a broad overview of the importance of your study. As again, this is the point for you to reiterate to your reader that this is the value of my research. This is my contribution. This is what I'm offering to the world. Then you could also restate your research topic And avoid just repeating what you included in the results section in this first part, but give them an overview. Kasi after they have read the results and the discussion, baka nakalimutan na nila anong nangyari nung una. I-refresh mo lang sila. Then include the main research findings that answer your primary research questions. Then in your paragraphs 2 to 3, you are to give critical analysis of your major findings. Again, when we say critical analysis, it's just a matter of, I'll show later, if I still have the time, I'll show later how a one-sentence result would yield to 3 paragraphs discussion, okay? If I still have the time later, okay? Then articulate your interpretations for those findings. You should include whether these were the findings you expected. Ayun. Remember that you have to tell them that, again, there are surprising findings that can be attributed to the following factors. But you have to mention what are those contexts that made the data this one, okay? That actually help you arrive at this particular findings. Provide explanation for the significance of the results and for any unexpected findings. Then you also have to link your primary findings back to prior research studies. And you are to include as well the implications of your results. That's why if you did not do good or well in your literature review, what will you cite here? What will be the findings that you will corroborate in this section? Di wala, di ba? So, puro sweeping statement tayo. Okay? Puro sarili mo lang. Puro nanggagaling sa'yo. Sino may sabi niyan? Ako lang po. Bakit ikaw lang? Ako po yung available eh. Okay? Busy po yun ba? So, no. Kaya importante, you have to scholarly engage into completing your literature review because they will be helpful in this part. Then again, writing is personal. Yes. There's particular experience where there are times that I'm also working on the RRL while doing the discussion section, because in the discussion section, that's the time you can still get some insights on what else are missing in your RRL. They could be done simultaneously. Pwedeng nagdi-discussion ka na, tapos feeling mo kulang yung interpretation mo, then search ka ulit. Something that you can still include in your RRL. Kaya nga sabi ko, it's a personal way. Okay? Next is in paragraph 4, include a discussion of any secondary findings that are noted, and include any limitation of your study and how future studies might mitigate this limitation. So you are already giving the ideas to future researchers on, if you want to follow this, you have to address these concerns that I found out or that are actually encountered for you to get another result, or for you to validate, or for you to contradict the result. Because sometimes at this section, we also have to be cautious in claiming something, and we have to take our findings in caution. May mga ganun tayong mga write-ups sa results and sa discussion section na the findings could be treated in caution because of the limited sample size, yung mga ganun. We have to tell that to them as well. So they will have idea on where to start. And paragraph 5, include the conclusion of the discussion section and your future directions. You also include any new research questions that arose as a result of your study, and implications from your findings for the field should also be discussed in this paragraph. Okay, so what are the things we need to avoid? First is over-presentation of the results. Ito yung sinasabi namin na yung buong table, di-discuss ulit sa results and discussion. Hindi na po. Only the one that is significant. May kita mo kasi in some articles na nagsasubmit sa amin, kunyari may 20 items sa table niya, lahat yung discuss. Lahat yung kwento niya. No, only the highlights. Just tell us the highlights. The highest, the lowest, or the middle. Mga ganun lang. Don't boast about the importance of your findings, and don't come up with any unwarranted speculation that are not grounded on any research finding or what previous scholars have discovered. Next is discussing unrelated issues. Okay, make sure that you're only on point on the topic, and don't criticize other research. Rather, just show the limitations, but not explicitly telling. Okay, that's explicitly. Let's tell the facts and let the readers decide. And don't come up with conclusions that are not supported by your data. Okay, so ito yung sinasabi ko po kanina. Okay, this is the result and this is the discussion. So as shown, the mean of 2.83 with a standard deviation of 0.306 is interpreted as somehow accepted. So what would be the meaning of this? So sunod-sunod po yan. This one statement, key result, we have these interpretations for the discussion. Ganito po siya kahaba yung naging discussion niya. Okay? Then, next, what makes a paper publishable in a reputable and high-impact journal? Number one, professional presentation and followed guideline authors. It's always important to internalize among us that when we submit journal articles, it's like we are also submitting ourselves to the world. Okay? So that would be a document that other researchers will be looking at. So we have to make sure that it is well prepared, and we have to make sure that we don't have any inconsistencies. We have reviewed it, we have read it thoroughly, so that we are sure that when other scholars go through it, there could be errors, minimal, but not those glaring, because we cannot really avoid errors. Even in our papers published, if we read it now, still there are those that would pass the editor's eye, and they are really inevitable, but make sure that they are not glaring errors. And errors that would lead to the, that would be something that harmful to the entire discipline. It falls under fields prescribed by the journal, and it is written in intelligible English, okay? What makes a paper publishable? It's also interesting and new. What is interesting? Interesting is something that is significant nowadays. New is something that is giving another perspective to an old topic, but trying to answer it in a new way with your new methodology. Another thing is relevant literature and well-established gap. And journals also look at the novelty of the methodology and of the ideas that you are presenting to them. Okay, so reminders to all of us, we have to read many journal articles as possible. That should be part of our routine, to be reading journal articles, because we learn from the authors. Be a reflective reader. Learn from the good ones as well as the bad, diba? I remember our professor would show us good articles and not so good articles, and tell us what were taken for granted, what were overlooked in this particular paper, because we don't learn from our mistakes. Rather, we learn from the insights we get from our mistakes. So we have to get insights from those mistakes that we find. So be a reflective reader. Learn to accept rejection and criticism, diba? If you are not open to rejection and criticism, especially in publication, it would be hard for you to really publish. But you always remember that when we submit our papers to journals, we are receiving pre-reviews, diba? For free critics. If ever they don't accept our papers, then it's a good point that they will be giving us bullets of reminders, which could be useful for us in our next submission. So be thankful. Be thankful to all those criticisms that they give us, because these criticisms help us improve our writing. Become a reviewer early in your career. Accept if your colleagues would ask you to read their paper, then do so. I remember that's how I started. Some of my colleagues would ask, okay, can you look at this? Can you look at this? Then becomes part of the system, as I say. And quality and not quantity is everything. Hindi po tayo parang gumagawa ng pito-pito movie, okay, when we research. When we do research, we make sure that it's of quality, and it takes time. Sometimes when you submit, it will take a year before you will get a response from the journal. And naghintay ka ng isang taon na para lang sabihin sa'yo na reject ka. Isang taon mo ko pinaghintay talaga, te. Huwag kang madaan-daan ng vaisiha, sabi ko sa'yo. Pag nadaan ka dito, di ba? Mga ganon. So, quality. And it's always important that you have to develop that particular space, niche that you have. You are just only in one topic, but in that particular one topic, you're trying to broaden it with the different angles that you make out of that very simple and small topic that you have in mind. Okay, so siguro run through na lang dito. Ano sir, bibisan ko lang po ito parang ano. Okay, so the submission stage, the what's and the how, there are two ways of submitting our article. It could be through an email and nowadays through an author account. Okay, I know most of us have already experienced submitting either through an email or through an author account. So here is submission through an email. This was in 2018. I submitted in 2018. Then, ayan, here example submissions through email. Okay. Then, ayan. Okay, so this is submission through author account. This is where you're gonna sign up for them. Okay, but just remember your password kasi may mga problema ako sa password minsan eh. Iba-iba kasi ginagamit kong password. Eh ngayon natuto na ako. Dapat isa lang. Natuto na ako kasi okay, ilista nyo. Kasi minsan, pagka natanggap na yung papel nyo at hindi nyo ma-access, sayang. Nangyari po sa amin yon. We have this one, tapos natanggap na pala siya, we cannot longer access. Wala na, hindi ka na magkaroon ng correspondence. Eh gusto ng journal is through their account. Submission through their account. So say for example, you have to read also the guidelines. Ayan yung mga examples. And the submission requirements. Click lang yan. Tick. Diba? Mabilis lang naman. Matyaga nga tayong manood ng YouTube. Parang ganun lang din ito. Don't forget to click, like, subscribe, and share. And to hit the bell button. Ganun lang din po dyan. Click lang tayo. Then, yan. Then you have to give a comment to the editor, to leave something to the editor. So like you say, attach our copy of manuscript for consideration. Then you have to tell what the study is all about. Okay. Then you have to follow all these steps. This is just a sample. Then we have this one. Tingnan mo, ang kasabit po ako ng article usually madaling araw kasi doon malakas yung internet. Okay, so here's our recent article we submitted in a Scopus journal. The title of this is Perspective, Challenges, and Opportunities, the Pandemic Teaching Experience in Science Courses. Hopefully this will be published early next year. But we submitted it like April. I know, yeah, parang ganun. And the types of review process, we have the single blind review. Anong single blind review? The author does not know the reviewer. In the double blind review, the author does not know the reviewer does not know the author. Okay, in the open review, kilala nila ang isa't isa. Alam nila kung sino ang nag-review. In a more transparent review, they could also know the editor knows the reviewer as well. In a collaborative review, the editor, the reviewer can put comments. Can put changes. Di ba kasi in the double blind review, ano lang yan, comment lang sila ng comment. But in a collaborative review, they could write something about it. Okay, and there is also the post-publication review. And the last is the triple blind peer review. Ano po yung triple blind peer review? The author does not know the reviewer does not know the author, and the editor does not know the reviewer as well. Parang last lang hindi sila magkakakilala. Okay, so example yan yung mga this is example of acceptance. We are pleased to inform you that your article entitled Exploring the Role of L1 has been accepted. Ganyan po siya. Ito po yung mga example na acceptance letter. Ito naman po yung acceptance letter through journal, what do you call this? Through author account. Ayan. Ito naman po, di ba? Masakit, makirot, mapaglaro, ang tadhana minsan, marireject ka. Di ba? After 1 year, sabihin lang sa'yo, we regret to inform you that your article has not been accepted. Di ba? Maganda naman. At sinabi niya yung general comments of the reviewer and the detailed comments of the reviewer. And other comments. Di ba? Ang daming comments. Di ba? Ang dami niyang comments. Maganda kasi, nung inulit namin i-submit, in-address namin to, hindi na sa kanya, sa iba na. Okay, natanggap naman na after ilang years. Okay, methodology. Explain, ayan, pinapa-explain niya lahat. That's how you respond to their, How do we deal with manuscript rejection? As I said earlier, we have to be thankful to the reviews given by them because this is for free. Di ba? You don't pay for just a submission. You pay once your article is accepted. But in the early submission stage and they are reviewing your paper, these reviewers are not paid really. Or sometimes they just have an X deal na, oh, you can publish with us with a minimal cost. Ganon. May mga ganong arrangement with the reviewers. Okay? So that's, I'm showing to you now the example of my correspondence with the editor. Marami yan. Natanggap na yung paper ko dito pero ang dami pa niyang mga comments from time to time. Yan. Yan po yung mga exchanges namin ng email. Ayan. And finally, ayan, sabihin niya, this is a bit confusing, mga ganon. Thank you for going through the article in the abstract. May mga ganun po. So hanggang sa matapos na yung pag-uusap nyo. Hanggang sa after yung final na, you will be asked to sign this particular agreement. Okay? Make sure that you have signed this one. Now, finally, as we end, sabi natin, how to remember research writing to become part of our lives. I always do this, that research writing can also be seen in brands. Diba? To become prolific, to become successful, and to become a skilled researcher, you always have to remember these brands. Okay? Once I show you the brand, please comment down below the tagline of this brand. Okay? Or you may say it if you got.
Just do it.
Okay, just do it. Thank you po. Research, just do it. Just do it. Little by little, you cannot accomplish a lot on this day, but there are small accomplishments. There are small wins that you can achieve if you just devote your time. Okay? If you just do it, you will learn. You will hone your potentials. It's just like, it's a skill. It's like playing piano. How can you be a good piano player if you will not practice every day? The same is true with research. Just do it. You may be shy sometimes to show what you have written, but a little by little, try to improve it, develop it, and when you have the courage to show it to your friend, to your trusted friend, na hindi kukunin yung idea yung binabasa mo, ay parang friend, hindi yata maganda yan. Huwag mo na ituloy. Pero after some months, may nagawang ganung study nanggaling wala sa isang idea, no? Something na just do it and you will learn the process. BDO, alam nyo yan. Diba? For sure. For BDO, we find ways.
We find ways.
We find ways to return whatever. Yeah. Whatever the ano, diba? Whatever amount ngayon. Okay, we find ways. In research, if we have an inquiry in mind, if we are curious about something, research help us to find ways in answering this. Through researching, through reading available literature, through reading what previous scholars have done in their quest to answer these inquiries, you can find ways as well to answer this. We find hackers, sabi ni Sir Michael. Okay, next is land bank. Bago na pala ngayon, papunta pa man din ako mamaya sa kanila. We find hackers na sila. Land bank. Land bank is?
Ang hirap. Kakunti kasi branches. Walang ads.
Government kasi yan.
Walang ads kasi. Hindi na alam.
Natawa ako dun sa konti branches. Saka alas 2 pa lang sarado na, no?
Oo. Laging offline.
Tapos lagi mong kasabay yung mga 4Ps pagka mag-withdraw ka. Tapos isa rin kayong pila. Okay, yes. We help you grow. Thank you po, Ma'am Josefa. Ang galing ni Ma'am Josefa. Saka meron pang isa nauna from Google, sabi niya. Okay. Oo, minsan pagka huwag kang tatapat ng mga swelduhan nila, talagang may inis ka kasi para kayong may relief good doon. Okay, so ayun, si Sir Michael, we help you grow. Tapos si Ma'am Olive, ayan, si Ma'am Josefa. Kasama mo farmers, sama. We help our grow, we help nurture. So land bank is we help you grow. Research helps us grow professionally, personally. Diba? It develops our rigors in writing. It makes us become more professional, more like of academician. Okay, if we engage into research, we don't know that things will unfold into our very eyes. That there are a lot of opportunities that will be open to us. You can go places. You can present abroad. I remember my first stint in the United States would be through research. So, thank you. We are thankful for research because research helps us grow, like land bank. Canon, o baka sabi niyo wala namang branches ha. Hindi po yan ano. Canon is Canon.
See the impossible.
See the impossible. Nagbago na kaya sila? Kailan? Binago kaya?
Or delighting your ways.
Ayun, delighting you always. Canon, di ba? Like research. Thank you po, Sir John Michael. Canon should always delight. Canon research should always delight us always. If we have research opportunity, we should be delighted na, oh, today I'll be doing a research. Today I'll be providing again information. Today I'll be providing knowledge again to the existing body of literature. Hindi yung mag-research na naman, nakakainis, research. Wala na bang iba? Wala na bang ibang pwedeng gawin? Pwede bang magturo na lang ako? Pwede naman po. Pero samahan din natin research. And always remember that research should always give that particular smile in our faces. Na, say for example, kami minsan pag wala na kaming ginagawang research, parang passive na yung buhay namin. Ganon na, oy friend, wala tayong research. Kaya kagabi nag-meeting uli kami ng aking mga co-authors from Mindanao and from Manila. And we are talking about an upcoming project for a conference. Naghahanap kami ng mga conferences and where we could submit actually. And apple, you know, an apple a day makes 7 apples a week, di ba sabi nila? If you have an apple a day. Think different. Okay, research helps us to think different. Okay, we can, in our instruction, if we see our students act this way, through research, we can think of better strategies on how to address this particular concern that our students encounter. And last is Chevrolet. Research is like Chevrolet because Chevrolet, from Mom Cheryl Villaluz, research helps us find new roads, new opportunities. And why publish? It's our key indicator of scholarly contributions. It is our prerequisite for grant funding. When we apply for grant funding, they always search for our profile in the internet. If we really are like engaged into research and what were those projects that we completed, so that we are really given the trust by these funding agencies to proceed for our proposal. Then research is also, publication also helps us develop a national reputation. And through publication, we develop our personal impact. And also we help the journal develop its impact through our citation. And finally, we publish because it's our professional and social obligation. We owe it to our children that we provide them better findings in the future. We inform them of what were done during our time and how could they make sense of these findings for them to look into their brightful future. Getting published in a nutshell is that first, aim for the right journal. Sometimes we get rejected because it's not the proper journal. Another thing is balance ambition and realism. It's okay to publish first in not Scopus, just peer-reviewed journal. There are a lot of peer-reviewed journals. I can share with you the sites for these peer-reviewed journals. If you don't want yet the Scopus index, go to peer-reviewed journals. Then hone your manuscript. Always don't rush things. Huwag ating madaliin because it takes time. Look for the right timing where we could submit it. And from time to time, read the manuscript, because every time you read it, there are new insights that you get. There are new errors that you get. And look for an editor. Look for someone who will read it outside the authors, circle of the authors, because sometimes we become complacent in our work and we don't see the error. We become used to our own errors and we don't see it. Gain experience and finally keep trying. So here are the references. Thank you very much to the opportunity and to share with you this research experiences of mine. And it's really an honor to be with all of you. Have a great day and Merry Christmas.
Thank you so much, Dr. Torres, for your very comprehensive and fun-filled presentation. Nag-enjoy po kami. Busog na po dito, busog pa rin po ang aming mga puso, no, sa kaligayahan. Tagalog na Tagalog, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Hanapin po natin ang roots natin, sir, no, kasi Torres din po ako nung dalaga.
Ah, talaga po,
Yes,
ma'am?
po. Yes po.
From saan po kayo, ma'am?
Ang father ko po is from Zambales.
Okay po.
Magte-trace kami ng roots ni Doc mamaya.
Ma'am,
Okay, so
send ko
let's
lang
again.
yung link para i-trace natin. Isend ko yung link.
Sige po. So once again, thank you so much, Dr. Torres. This time, Professor Rafael Elias Ticena will give his reaction.
Hello, good morning. Foremost, we would like to thank Dr. Joel Torres for giving us a very comprehensive review of the parts of a research article in order for us to refresh, if not revitalize, our interest in research. Now, I picked out important parts and very interesting parts from the very, very wonderful talk of Dr. Torres. One of which is the focus on higher education research being more comprehensive and more rigorous as compared to any other process or life cycle of the research process, be it in the secondary education or in the primary education. We all know that research in higher education is more comprehensive and more rigorous. So much so that our efforts should be more focused in doing our research. Also, one important aspect that Dr. Torres has enlightened us this morning is that we can begin at any stage of the research process. Meaning that if we are sometimes overwhelmed with ideas or we do not know where to start in the research process, we could start at any stage or any process of it and then just go along with the process in itself. Also, one important thing that I've noted in Dr. Torres's talk would be the course model. It is a very useful model for us to follow in order for us to strengthen our introduction part of our research article. Another important aspect which really tickled my interest would be the importance of truism in citing literature. Because as we all know, as we conduct our survey of literature, there are some pieces of information that may be contradictory to our proposed idea in our research, and sometimes we have doubts in considering in putting them in our own research articles. Another important aspect is the difference between the usage of IE and EG. It has been a very very newfound knowledge for me when Dr. Torres informed us of the difference between the two. That using IE pertains to exclusivity of the authors in the article, and EG pertains to authors that may be omitted or uncited in our in-text citations. Again, it's also important, as what Dr. Torres told us, not to ignore negative results that may be derived from the results of our study, because this also adds chunk of knowledge to our presentation of data. In making or in drafting our results and discussion section, we should also put in mind what question or questions would we logically want to ask next. This is what Dr. Torres has reiterated for all of us, that our research should have the quality of, as I call it, continuity. So when we have continuity in our research, we would get cited more often by other researchers. Also, quality and not quantity is everything in research. Dr. Torres could not have reiterated this more importantly and more further, because in research, again, we are so overwhelmed with the demand of doing research that we always think that we should produce quantity over quality. It's not always about quantity, but rather the quality of the results and our discussion of the results that is more important in the research arena. So all of this is summed up by Dr. Torres presenting to us the taglines of different brands. One thing that really struck me the most would be the tagline of BDO. We find ways, because in research there are sometimes different standards Okay, there may be set standards internationally, but more often than not, we find different standards, and because of this, we get confused on what to follow. So even so, we should find ways of how to produce or draft our very own research articles, not only required by the institution, but also an aid to our very own professional and personal development. Again, we would like to extend our sincerest gratitude to Dr. Joel Torres for a lighthearted but very insightful look on how we can strengthen our research papers. Thank you very much, and we hope that everyone enjoys the rest of the program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Desena, for your reaction. Okay, so this time we will have our open forum. And for our open forum, we have the following guidelines. One, if you want to ask question orally, mention your name first and identify your college or department, then your question. Second, if you want to ask questions through the chat box, mention your question and identify your name and college or department after your query. Okay, so let's start ball rolling. First question po. Okay, Doc Owen.
Good morning po. Owen po from the Basic Education Department. Ayan. Dr. Torres, earlier, very light yung delivery. Kahit na natatawa kami. Tinatamaan ako dun sa mga certain points that you have raised when it comes to writing the introduction. Kasi yun, when you differentiated active and passive reading, most of the time talaga, parang nagiging selective marites. Kahit ako, nagiging selective marites in citing literature. Na when I feel that this is impactful, I think magiging maganda to sa paper, I included it sa aking literature review. But yung synthesizing, sometimes na-overlook. My question is, I think this is very significant because it would unlearn some of our practices in writing our review of the reading literature. We always observe yung recency noong mga literature cited na as much as possible 5 years back. Your works were published in Scopus journals, and you have mentioned na very important that we acknowledge yung mga rock stars, yung mga big names, yung mga who are pioneers doon sa mga certain fields, which happen to be mga outdated na usually ang literature. So, does that mean Scopus journals are not very conscious of the year of publication for as long as they are the authorities in such discipline?
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Owen, for that question. Keep it up, no? Maganda yung tanong mo. Okay, ang nasasabi ko lang, some Scopus journals would always look at the seminal works. They always wanted that. But it's a matter of combination of the new and the pioneering works. That doesn't mean that you're looking for, if you're publishing now, so they're looking for publications like 2018, 2017, but make sure these 2018, 2017 authors also stood on the shoulders of the giants, meaning also their works were anchored or grounded on the findings of this. So it's also important that if they have shown similar trends, then you may just have, say for example, for comparison, you must note Spini in 1921. I remember in my dissertation, I would cite Jefferson 1921 just to establish this particular construct. But then again, you would show to them the transition that through time, this is still the one that we follow, and that we could still make sense of what he said, and as well as contemporary authors still dwell on what he said, something like that. What is important is for you to show, especially in this high-tier journals, that you really surveyed it well in such a way that you did not set aside any debates, any controversy within your field. So it's really a mixture, a blending of past and new one. But you would notice that reviewers, if they really are into the field, they would understand why you are citing this author. But I remember institutions, say for example, in schools, in masters, in dissertations, yun yung laging paalala sa atin, di ba? Na-cite only yung mga 10 years, past 10 years lang. But we also have to remember that we owe it to those who did the seminal works. That they are the ones who pioneered in this particular undertaking or field of inquiry. So if your question is how to address that, make sure that it's a combination of the recent one and acknowledging of the pioneering works. You may just only seek, say for example, in you would say in Mamport and Fedler 2018, then within that CF Jefferson 1921, meaning they are saying the same thing. Okay, they found the same thing, something like that. That would
Alright.
or Jefferson 1921 and Mumford and Jesley 2017. Parang ganon. Pwede mo na siyang i-secondary, but make sure you go back to that particular old seminal work.
Alright. So, bottom line, sir, hindi cost of rejection yung citing outdated sources.
No.
For as long as it is well justified that they are the pioneers, that you run through yung very origin nung ganong concept.
Exactly.
Thank you very much, bro.
Yeah, I don't know if there are instances na may na-reject because of that. Pero I think the reviewers themselves would always want to recognize the seminal works as well, because this will demonstrate how thoroughly, intensively, and critically you reviewed and surveyed the literature in your discipline.
Thank you po.
Sir Omar Garisha po from the College of Arts and Sciences. This is somehow connected to the question raised by Dr. Contilio. Now, it was highlighted in the first part of your talk that quality literature review is one of the most important things that need to be looked at by researchers, in both beginners and novice researchers. Now, Dr. Joel, we can see the implication of quality literature review in terms of the available resources that we have in the university, because definitely in Central Luzon, even in De La Salle, you have access to certain databases, let's say Scopus Index databases, which are provided by your institution. In our case, when we do literature review, we have a number of databases like Google Scholar. We have, actually, we released a number of databases that are available, but we are limited. We have limitation when it comes to accessing yung mga database ng Scopus na mga ganyan. I understand by subscription yung iba doon, Sir Joel. Now, do you have any practical tip for us na for us to have quality literature review at wala kaming subscription sa mga ganitong mga dekalibre na mga databases na nandun din naman yung mga articles na yon, but we won't pay much kung wala kaming subscription. Dr. Joel.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Omar, for that particular question. Yeah, for practical tips, this is what you're gonna do. You just look at the articles. First, look at the appearance, the formatting. If the formatting, the appearance, even the margin, if they justify the entire paragraph, these are not good, then magkaroon kaya ng takot sa sarili mo, di ba? Huwag mo na itong susundan. Then you go to the references at nakita mo na hindi din talaga maayos, unang-una, huwag mo na siyang susundan. Then nakita mo rin yung introductory paragraphs pa lang niya ay meron ng mga glaring grammatical errors. Basically, huwag mo na siyang sundan. So, marami mga free. Say for example, sa Elsevier, they are giving free articles as well. If you cannot find that in the profile, in the ResearchGate profile and in the Google Scholar profile, you just have to type it in one database. I forgot the name of that database, but I will tell you. I'll just go back to that. Just type the title of that article and you can download it for free. That is what we usually do. Or if I really need this particular article and really don't have access to it, I go to the abstract because that's the only available. Then the references of this particular article is also available. I just follow what are for free there and go to this articles that they cited.
Yeah,
That,
I agree with you
yeah.
na kalimitan ang pinapakita lang kapag sa Scopus index journals yung abstract lang. But sadly, yung references hindi pinoprovide Dr. Joel. So focus na lang kami dun sa abstract and get the salient findings from the abstract.
And from that, sir, check the title. Check the title on your end. As a researcher, you try to play with the words of the title. Probably you could find something out of it. But there's this particular website, as I say, free science database ang pangalan na. You could just type in the title of the article, and from there, you could see if it's not open access. Kasi there are instances na they will not give it open access in the website of the repository itself. But if you follow the Google Scholar profile of that author, it's for free there. Or if you check if that author is on ResearchGate, it's also open or downloadable there. If these three steps do not work, then that's the time for you to really ask someone from the field na who has access to this. Sometimes in the ResearchGate, they keep it private, but just email the author and tell them that you will cite them naman and tell them that you just need this one. They will give. I remember Dr. Tish Bautista of De La Salle. I tried accessing her article and she did not respond for years. Only last year lang siya nag-respond sa akin. Tapos ko na yung paper. Yung mga ganun ba? Yung mga ganong instances na sasabihin nila, yeah, we'll email you. Kunyari sa conference na to, sinabi ko, yeah, sasabihin ko sa iyo yung link. Hindi ko na sasabihin yun. Sasabihin ko sa iyo mamaya, hanapin ko. Ganon kasi minsan. Pero the thing is, careful lang tayo sa appearance pa lang nung article. Pag nakita mo na walang kaayos-ayos yung pagkaka-present ng article, mag-doubt ka na doon sa kanyang pagkaka-cite. Yun yung aking laging basihan. Halimbawa, marami kasing mga articles available sa discipline natin pero beginning statements pa lang, ba't ganito? Parang kulang. Parang hindi complete yung sentence. Parang spelling mali na. So, how will you trust that one? So, you look for, marami namang free. Just follow the profile of those author you are trying to replicate his work. I remember parang kagabi we were trying to look for discourse analysis articles. So we just went to the profile of that particular author. Then we found the list of the articles available.
Thank you,
I hope I was able to answer your question, but I will get the name of the what do you call this one? The site where we always get the for free. Pero siyempre sinabi ko lang sa iyo, pero of course ibibigay ko mamaya. I-follow up niyo ako ni Doc Owen. Pagka hindi i-post niyo ako sa FB. Promise. Pagka hindi ako sabi mo, Sir Joel, ibibigay mo ba yung link o ipopost ka namin? So, parang utang ko sa inyo. Sige, I'll get the link. Okay. Nakalimutan ko lang ngayon . Yes, sir.
Any more questions? Ang dami na. Any more questions? May tanong pa po tayo. Okay, so wala na po ba? Perhaps napaka-comprehensive nga talaga nung presentation ni Dr. Torres. That's why. Okay, konti lang yung talagang inihabol nating tanong. Okay? So, okay, we now have the virtual awarding of certificate to our plenary speaker. University of Perpetual System Laguna, Santo Niño, City of Binyan, Laguna, Research and Development Center presents this Certificate of Appreciation to Dr. Joel M. Torres for sharing his expertise as resource speaker on structuring scientific papers from effective writing to successful publishing during the 2021 Institutional Research Conference themed Higping ng Saliksik, Raising the Bar of Researching Towards Impact and Sustainability, which was held on December 15 to 16, 2021 via Zoom. Signed, Dr. Leomar Galicia, Research Director, Dr. Ferdinand C. Sumido, Executive School Director. Thank you so much. Once again, Dr. Torres.
Thank you very much po to all of you. Thank you for having me.
We